Hello my friends, welcome back to another session with Moments with Marion. Now in one of the previous videos I talked about the 3 centers of intelligence, and today I'd like to share a little bit more about how to integrate them as well as to be able to find balance within your life. Now what are the 3 centers of intelligence? Basically it's about your head, your heart and your body and what they are telling you. Now what we found is that when there's any kind of external trigger or stimulus, your thoughts come about and they may trigger certain feelings, or certain memories may bring about certain emotions, and that's going to trigger other thoughts. Now which one comes first doesn't really matter, but we definitely know that your feelings as well as your thoughts will affect your actions or your reactions or your behaviors. So let me share with you a little bit about my cockroach story. When I see a cockroach, especially if it's a flying one, I become a screaming wreck and I just run away and I need to hide. Now logically, I know that I can kill that cockroach because I'm definitely bigger than it. But for some reason, my fear cripples me and I'm unable to do anything except scream and run. So I tend to react. Now this is where my thoughts and my feelings are interconnected, and it's definitely affecting the way I behave. Now if I think about it in my life situation, I would really say that I'm very much a heady person. I tend to live in my head a lot of the time, where I tend to overthink a lot, I sometimes worry, and I can get very distracted and tend to sometimes have a lack of focus. But when it comes to the heart center or emotions, I don't really like to go there. Every time something emotional would happen, I would say, I'll put the emotions aside for later and I'll deal with them next time. Now, did I deal with them? Why would I? Why would I want to go back to that unpleasant experience and do anything about it, because it seemed to be too painful, so I'd rather suppress it or put it out of my sight and mind. Now this definitely affected my relationships with people because I was not really in touch with my emotions, especially in terms of my one-to-one relationships with my children or with anybody who was really close to me. When it comes to the body, I recognize that I was always very sporty and I generally kept very fit. Now growing up, I tended to also be very active, and even as an adult, I always found myself needing to be doing things. When I look at all my 3 centers, I would say that I wasn't working on was really about integrating the 3 and being able to find balance. Now in 2009, I had a health scare. I did not recognize that I actually was going through a lot of stress. I was working, I was volunteering, I was looking after my young children, I was looking after my parents, and I thought I was really living my life to the fullest. Now I found that at some point I was extremely tired, always exhausted, always very drained of all my energy. So let's fast forward a little bit and let me talk about how I integrated my 3 centers. And so the first thing that I did was I had to start journaling. Now I'm one person who likes to go out and talk to people, and I definitely found that by talking or repeating the situation over and over again, it was actually intensifying the emotions. And like any normal person, there were tendencies for me to sometimes maybe even exaggerate the situation. So by journaling certain emotions that I was suppressing, it was so important for me to think about what was causing me to feel this way from as far back as I remember. So I looked at certain emotions like anger, sadness, guilt, and shame. So I wrote all of these down, and then the next part to process it was to actually look at each of these situations and think about, was I learning something from this situation? Was there a gift in these situations, and what could I learn from them? Then I need to look at the people that were involved and ask myself, was it intentional for them to want to hurt me? So it was really important for me to be able to process it and not make assumptions about anyone's behaviors. Also, another thing for me as I was working on them was to be able to forgive the people involved, as well as forgive myself for still holding on to that anger, that shame, that guilt, or even that frustration. The second thing that I started to do was mindfulness. Now, the practice of mindfulness was definitely not very easy for me to do, to be able to sit still and stay with my thoughts or not allow myself to get distracted. So with a lot of practice, I found that mindfulness really helped me get in touch with my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions, especially in terms of my body, to be able to recognize the different signals my body was saying to me, especially when I was under stress or when I was feeling drained or exhausted. So what I really recognized for myself was the ability to slow down and breathe. The third point is really about compassion for myself. Now, I have a lot of empathy for other people, but many times I tend to forget to turn it within myself. I have a very strong inner critic where I'm always beating myself up about certain things, and I set really high standards for myself. I also like to have control because I love fixing things. So I had to start to let go of that control. I started to give myself a little bit of a break and recognize that things will just happen on its own and everything would be fine. I also needed to recognize that I did not have to compete with other people. At the end of the day, it was just about competing with myself and being the best version of myself. So ladies and gentlemen, I've shared the 3 areas that help me really work on integrating my 3 centers, and it is on journaling, it is doing mindfulness, and the third one is to have compassion for myself. Being able to integrate my 3 centers have definitely made me feel more grounded. So do you feel centered? Do you feel balanced? Now remember, you only have this one life to live, so be the best version of yourself. Be the best you. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time with me. Till we meet again for another Moments with Marion.